become clearer as we go along. It may seem a little convoluted right now, but just bear with me. Okay. So now we talked about, the two types of trust and implied trust, or the first type of trust, the implied trust, which branches off into the resultant trust and the constructive trust. Now we're going to talk about implied consent. Now, implied consent appears on the surface not to be a trust. Okay, but we're going to see how implied trust and implied consent go hand in hand. Okay. Now, when we talk about implied consent, what are we talking about? All right, let's go here. Implied consent. Okay. Driving while intoxicated. All U.S. states have driver's licensing laws which state that a licensed driver has given their implied consent to a certified breathalyzer or by a blood sample by their choice or a similar manner of determining blood alcohol concentration. So did you get that? All U.S. states have laws that say when you get a driver's license, you have given consent, implied consent, to be subject to a breathalyzer or by blood sample or any other method that they can use to determine your blood alcohol level. How is this so? How, if you don't ever see this on anything that you sign, or if you never read it in your handbook, how did you give consent to this? Let's see. So let's say you get a driver's license in California. We're going to go to our handy dandy California Driver's Handbook. This 116-page booklet is what you get, and you're to study from this to take your driver's license test. Okay, in California. Now, other states, of course, have similar criteria for getting your driver's license. You have to take a test, a standardized test, and you study from a handbook. Okay. So, again, this is 116 pages. This is a table of contents, and you are to study all of these topics. And your test is based on that. Now here, in this California handbook, we have general information. We have a disclaimer. Okay. This handbook provides a summary of the laws and regulations outlined in the California Vehicle Code. The Department of Motor Vehicles, law enforcement, and the courts follow the full and exact language of the California Vehicle Code. Okay? What does that mean? It means that this handbook is just a little bit of the laws and regulations that are in the California Vehicle Code, which is the book that you're responsible for knowing when you get your license. And this disclaimer is what's telling you that. Okay? This handbook provides a summary, just a little bit. All right? And it says the Department of Motor Vehicles, law enforcement, and the courts follow the full and exact language of the CVC, the California Vehicle Code. That is what they go by. Okay? Now, let's look at the California Vehicle Code, because this little booklet is not all you need to know. And we'll see exactly why that is. Okay, we are now in the California Vehicle Code. All right, this is the State of California 2015 Vehicle Code. Now, they only put the older issues online, or the older editions online. The 2017 edition is only available by purchase, and it's like, I think, $15 or $20. But they put the older editions online so that you can get an idea of what you're responsible for if you should not purchase the book. And again, in that handbook, that is your only notice. This is your only notice that you have a different section or another part of the contract that you must be responsible for in this disclaimer. Okay? And that is this 1,049-page booklet. So we go here, to page 520, and we see here, and 236.12. A person who drives a motor vehicle is deemed to have given his or her consent to chemical testing of his or her blood or breath for the purposes of determining the alcoholic content of his or her blood, if lawfully arrested for an offense allegedly committed in violation of Section 231.40, 231.52, or 231.53. Okay? So here is where they let you know you have your consent buried in this 1,000-page book that you must know that you're responsible for by this disclaimer. Okay? But you are responsible for it when you get your license, as this so states. And again, when we go back to the Wikipedia article, we see that all states have driver's licensing laws which state that a licensed driver has given their implied consent. So if you have a license, you have given your implied consent. Okay? And in a Supreme Court case of the United States in Birchfield versus North Dakota, held that both breath test and blood test constitute a search under the Fourth Amendment, concluding that requiring breath test is not constitutional without a search warrant, meaning that they can do it and still be in compliance with the Constitution. Well, they do that because they contract you into giving up your right to your right against unreasonable search and seizure. You give that up by contract. That is also upheld by the same right that gives you the right to contract, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. Okay, so they play a little game on you. So this shows you how you're responsible, even though you don't know anything about this. This is why when people get pulled over and they say, oh, well, you don't have to consent to a search, or you have to give them your permission, all that stuff is baloney, because you're into contracts that have sections that you don't know about because they're not readily available to you. They're not disclosed to you directly. They're disclosed to you indirectly, but not directly. Okay? And it's not wrong, sad to say. Or I should say, I'm not going to say it's not wrong. I'm going to say it's not unlawful or illegal. All right? It's up to you to determine right or wrong in that situation. But they definitely don't go to you asking you to apply for a license, although they do make it seem like you have to have one. Okay, that's another story. So now we have implied consent. Now let's go to implied contract. And the definition of an implied contract is it consists of obligations arising from a mutual agreement and intent to promise where the agreement and promise